Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Coffee with Jim and James. James, Mike, and before we bring Mike in, I just want to say that I had the most delicious cup of coffee today. It's actually extra special. Reminds me of a time that I was in New Orleans with Mike's counterpart, Lane Miller, 2018. I'm not going to confirm or deny that Lane had another mishap when he was on crutches and may have taken a spill in a restaurant. You know what? Let's table that for another time because we'd want Lane here to defend himself if we did. But anyways, it's good to be here this morning. Thanks for joining us, audience. James, would you do the honors and bring our guest in, please?
I will. You may know him from the internet and making the media rounds here lately with all of our friends on all the podcasts here lately. Mr. Mike LaMont from TRC is joining us today. Mike, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Yeah,
I'm great. How are you?
We are doing well. We are making it through.
Awesome.
As we've shared on the show many times, we've moved to kind of a schedule where we record several at a time. I think we're on number 7,000 of today. It feels like we're doing really well. We're in the zone. We're in the flow. You got us at the end, which means we're really good at this now. No excuses.
You know, there's so much truth to that. I do podcasts myself, and it's difficult to go back and listen to the early material. It's like, oh, really? But the more you do it, just like anything else, the better you get at it.
And it becomes more comfortable and easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike, we have a support group now that you're a part of, the Super Friends. With a lot of us in there on an email chain. I think it's a support group for podcasting just in our industry. Keeps us all sane. But Mike, we're glad you're here this morning. For those that don't know Mike is Director of Pipeline Integrity Services, TRC. And if you don't follow Mike on LinkedIn and if you're not on the awesome email chain that I am, you should be following him. He's a great resource for leadership. He's out there really being an advocate for our industry, and we're excited to have him on. So Mike, good morning, and we're just going to jump right in if you're ready.
Great, let's do it.
All right. So we were trying to figure it out in the pre-show, but we can't decide if we cross paths or not actually in person. I'm sure we have, and we've been to a lot of events, and there's without a doubt a chance that we have. But like I said, in the virtual world we've been in the last 18 months, we definitely have. And, lots of events that we speak at. I know y'all do as well. TRC is a client of ours also. And so to say we have a lot of overlaps, really kind of an understatement. So it's awesome to sit down with you and kind of fellowship and really kind of put face to the name. But let's get started. I want to kind of give your origin story, bring everybody along to the Mike LaMont that we see today.
Wow. Okay, so that's a wonderful question, the origin story, and how did I get to where I am today? I'd like to think of myself as an underdog, and I think that we all go through life, and somewhere around elementary school, you start to compare yourself to others and go, maybe I'm not as athletically gifted, and maybe I'm not as, things don't come easy to me, because like, whoa, hey, that kid understood that, and I didn't get it. And I would say that that's actually been a great thing for me, because, over the course of my childhood, I, like most kids, I didn't have a great relationship with hard work, and it was something that my parents really, my parents did not give up, right? It was, hey, we're going to go out and cut the grass. We're going to go out and do these things. And you're not going to do a shoddy job. You're going to do a great job at anything you do. And I'd say somewhere around high school that kind of started to click with me. I'm like, oh, the more you put into stuff, the better, the more you get out of it. And I would say that that's been a pillar that's really carried me. Now, aside from work ethic, I think that the confidence, you have to have confidence in being a successful, contributing member to our society. And you go, okay, well, Mike, where did your confidence come from? I think a couple of things. I think one is, I always knew that I could go back and, and put the work in. But two, and I talked about this a little bit on Connections for Life, but
Yep.
I actually, when I was in grad school, I was teaching and I was working on a thesis, and that money ran out, and I had to go work at the local zoo to make money, and not many people know that. And so I went from teaching freshmen in college, which, by the way, can be a very scary thing in and of itself, to working with venomous snakes and crocodiles and alligators. And I remember thinking, how many people would do this? Not many. Not many would do this. And I also specifically remembered one day when I was working with one of the cobras or mambas that, one day when I get out into the professional world, I will never have a task as difficult as what I'm doing here. And so that's kind of stuck with me over the years is, yeah, but, this is not life and death stuff. So in that environment, you can't make a mistake, and you can't always control what that critter's going to do. And so that was definitely very influencing. And then beyond that, I think the final thing is I've been a lifelong martial artist. My parents put me in karate when I was probably about third or fourth grade, and I've most recently been training in judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I think those things are excellent for people. I think all kids should have to take a martial art of some form. And it's interesting because it's incredibly humbling, because you really, when you start at the white belt, you look around and you go, I don't know, all these guys are better, all these guys and gals are better than me. And so it kind of breaks you down, but then it slowly builds you back up. And the one thing about martial arts is if you don't quit, you will be successful at it. And so my thing was, well, I'm not the most physically gifted person in the world, but I just will not quit, right? Mm-hmm. And that stuck with me. So those are the kinds of things that have influenced me to help me get to where I am today.
There's a ton of discipline in martial arts, and almost unparalleled to what you need. I mean, and it's funny to think of that from a business standpoint and really attribute that. That's an awesome outlook. Mike, how did you end up in natural gas?
So I started my career doing regulatory compliance at a chrome plating plant, and then got a call from a company called Lufkin Industries. And Lufkin Industries, for those of you that don't know, manufactures oil pumping units. And that was really the start. And so I went and took a position with them where I was doing environmental, all the safety, all regulatory compliance things. And that was I'd say the real start in my oil and gas career. And from there, after a few years of doing that, I went to a small consulting firm and jumped in right when the integrity rules were first coming out, and haven't looked back since.
That's awesome.
I love it. Sure. I do want to introduce Mike, though, to Randall Hackworth from Wade Trim. Next time you're at a conference, we're at a conference together. Let's connect the dots.
Yeah.
He competed in some sort of form of martial arts in the world. I mean, this was a few years ago, but he was a worldwide competitor. And he also talks about the discipline that it carries through all parts of life. So very fascinating. That's probably why you have that youthful
It really does.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, I'm older than I look, so there is that.
Connections for Life guys said you've been in the industry energy for 20 years. And I think you said, Chad said, well, you started when you were 4,
Yeah, you're 4, exactly. Yeah, something to that effect. But and so, martial arts. I think human beings are really designed to be active and to get out and move your body. And so, not everyone has to go out and be a martial artist, but just like if you have a puppy and you keep it pent up in its crate all day, well, that dog's not going to be the super happy dog. It's not going to be the best it could be. I think people are exactly the same. You're meant to get out and move around. And one of the great things I think that COVID has taught us is, hey, when you can remote work, you can work from home, go out and take a walk at lunchtime,
Yes.
go take a walk in the evenings. And don't sit in a cube all day, because I think that ultimately that just crushes our souls. If we just sit there in front of these screens all day, it's really detrimental.
Yep. Oh, I agree. I used to be an avid walker, and when I did, I need to get it back up. I don't know, whatever, but it's, when I walked, it was more, I'd say, mental than physical, even though I did 4 to 6 miles a day. So it's great physical, but
absolutely
mental clarity. I felt alive. Let me bring us back on, Mike. TRC. We know you guys. Lane Miller
TRC
is a great friend of James's. No. Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Lane Miller's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Come on. I'll take ownership of Lane. So known him for years, and he's a great guy. Let's help bring the audience a little bit more into TRC, what you guys do, how you fit into the big picture, such like that. Let's give people the maybe the 20,000 foot overview. How does that sound?
Sure, that sounds great. So TRC, we are a full service engineering consulting firm. We do everything from air permitting to soil and groundwater remediation. Our team works with pipelines, and you go, okay, well, what do we do with pipeline? We work with both hazardous liquids and natural gas pipelines, and we do all things regulatory pipeline safety. And so you mentioned Lane, regulatory guru. That's something that TRC's really done an excellent job at, is that we've went out and got the top experts in the pipeline industry and have structured our team around those experts. So we have, a regulatory compliance team, Lane Miller, DeWitt Bordeaux, Dale Goldman, Buzz Fant. These are all top experts in our industry. And beyond that, we do integrity engineering. And you go, what does that mean? So HCA analysis, risk analysis, integrity assessment management, data integration, and we have a corrosion control team, and all of these teams are led by really the top folks in the industry, and so we really are proud of being expert led.
I like that, and I think he even held back a little bit, because I when I've talked to Lane many times at conferences, Lane will go down a path and then he'll give a presentation, then he gets a presentation going. So, it's exciting. I got to share something with you, and you just hit on it. You use the word led. Okay. And I get to share the mic with this gentleman, James, who is passionate about leadership. James will talk your ears off, all of a sudden I'll get a whatever. He's like, hey, I found a new book on leadership, and if he goes over to his side, he has them on his desk. He could be pulling them out all day. I've watched.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's into it.
Yeah.
And
he's ready.
They're just props. I haven't read any.
It's good. No, he gives me tips.
They're on my list. They're on my list.
Yeah, he's helped my daughter, who just graduated from UT Austin. I mean, James is a guru about that. We've watched you on Live with Jim Kunkel. We watched you on Connections for Life. And I have to say, you and James have something very similar, this passion for leadership and leadership in a way to help people. Where did you get that? Who instilled that in you, Mike? Where does it come from?
That's a great question, Jim. I would say that the leadership void has sucked me in. It's not that I'm some great leader and I have everything figured out, because I don't. I would say that it's more that poor leadership is everywhere right now, and you can't get away from it, whether it's politicians, business, the media. We have such poor examples of what makes a good leader today.
Yep.
Today, how do you get to be a leader? Well, you put other people down, and you continue on that path, and it's, sitting back and criticizing others is simply not leadership. Okay, I think it takes very little intellect or ability to wait for something bad to happen, or to be divisive, or look at lagging indicators and go, well, you didn't do a good job, knowing very well that the person saying that can't do the work that you can. So that's not leadership. So I would say that because there's so much poor leadership, I feel really compelled to talk about, hey, there's a better way. There's a better way. Leaders should build up others and say, how can I help you? Yeah. Versus let's just kind of crush people and move on to the next group, crush them, keep them down. And we should be all working to elevate everyone around us. And the most fun that I've had professionally is, give me that island of misfit toys that nobody else wants, but they want to work hard. Give me the underdogs. I will form a team, and you know what? I'll get in there with them, right? And we will outwork anyone else, and we're going to build each other up. And in about a year, right, that team together will be better than, all the well-credentialed whatever, and so that's really what I'm passionate about, is there is a better way, and let's start talking about it, and let's push out the kind of this paradigm we're in right now, that somehow we should respect others that are in a leadership position that aren't leaders. Yeah. And so if you look at the stats right now, about 70% of the workforce says, I'm disengaged with my job. I don't like what I do. I don't like my boss. And you go, what does that mean in terms of productivity?
Oh, yeah.
Like, and companies are around to make money, period, dot. They are. That's what companies are around to do. And you go, well, wow, how much more money could you make if you inspired your employees and you built them up? Yep. Versus you lead by tearing them down, keeping them scared, right? And so that's something that I think we have to stand up and say, we need to change. Absolutely need to change. And right now we're seeing a changing of the guard, so to speak, in the leadership in oil and gas, where a lot of, I'll call it the old school leadership is moved on to retirement. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity to go, we're going to do this a little differently now. Yeah. And now there's two sides to this story, because the workforce has a role in it too, because I can say, you know what, I'm an employee and Jim, you're my boss. I'm going to put all the responsibility on you. And if you fail to inspire me, I'm just not going to work really hard. And so it's a two-way street. Yep. You as a leader have to do, but the workforce, and you see this everywhere. I'll jog, but I'm not going to run for you. And more that's becoming a problem with the younger generation coming on, because they're like, well, I'm really not inspired by you. So if you expect me to sweat, that's not going to happen. I'll do a light jog, and I will do the minimum, maybe a little bit more than the minimum, but I'm really not going to kill myself and really work hard. And so it's a two-way street. And I think that to have a balanced discussion, you have to always consider that the folks that are being led have to, one, be open-minded enough to being led. Yep. Right. And unfortunately, that's a challenge in the workplace as well today.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, Mike, there's a lot of studies being done on how important the first follower is, and it's one of the most famous TED Talks out there is a 3-minute TED Talk about the importance of the first follower, right? That first nut. And
right.
that learning how to be a great follower is something that's very important too, learning how to follow and win and look around.
Absolutely.
I think it's super underrated.
Absolutely. So now I think we are in this perfect storm where we've got folks that don't want to be led and have no interest really in being led, and then folks that are poor leaders. And so you go, where does it all come from? Again, I'd say that void that we sit in has more sucked me in and put me in this position where it's like I got to speak up and say something because I feel responsibility. I feel compelled to help, and I've made a career out of building up others, taking folks that didn't believe in themselves, that I saw something in, and going, hey, no, let's put you in a situation where you can succeed. And to me, that's more satisfying than anything you can do. And if you're not making other people around you better, why are you here?
Yep.
No doubt.
Let me jump in real quick. I just have to connect the dots again. When you said you wanted to lead the land of the misfit toys or whatever that phrase is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody else on this podcast, maybe James, has said the same thing about him, that he likes to do that too. He likes to get people that have, talent.
A really funny thing that happened. It was a kind of a joke at first, but Jim actually came to work in the brand department, so he worked for me. And funny enough, Jim left the brand department about 2 or 3 months ago, and it was like the end of Rudolph, where the toy got to go back home. So it was a full circle. It was pretty nice.
Yeah,
Mike, we joke about it. I love that you said, what pulled you in was really that void sucked you in. I'm kind of driven. I'm enamored by leadership. I'm so fascinated by it and I can't read enough. I can't look at enough examples and find this new little wrinkle that allows me to, like you said, stand people up or help people along or get them in the right seat, whatever it might be. So, kind of the same vein, but it's really, for me, it's so fascinating what's out there and what leaders have done in the past and the good and bad and ugly of it, right? You can learn just as much from the poor examples out there. In fact, when I look back, the ones that stick out are the ones I don't want to be when I grow up, and that's what I always said.
Yep, absolutely.
And so I learned quite a bit from that. Mike, I want to stay on this topic. I was really, pumped to get to sit and talk to you about leadership. There's a book for myself that kind of changed me in the way I went about it. I've mentioned it several times, called The Happiness Advantage. And if you haven't, look it up. There's also a TED Talk on it that's kind of it in a nutshell. But are there any books for you that maybe have been kind of that book or have built a great foundation for you? 7 Habits is another one for us.
Yep.
Good to Great is a good one.
Yeah.
Ones like that are become like foundational books for you.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we are so fortunate to live in an age where there's so many resources at our fingertips, and you can go onto YouTube and get some great, listen to TED Talks or just listen to some great content, and people should be taking advantage of that, right? I mean, it's just a wonderful time to be alive in that respect. So books. I would say that most recently, the book that has most influenced me is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I think that really opened my eyes. And if you haven't read it, it's the underdog story. It's about David growing up in rural Indiana and being poor, and his dad was abusive, and just having all of these disadvantages, and he overcame all of those things to become a Navy SEAL, inspirational speaker and author, and there's something that he says that really sticks with me, that basically we are living at about 40% of what we could do. Like we have a governor on us like a car, and we get to that 40%, and in whether it's doing something physical or sitting here working on something for work, we start to get uncomfortable and we go, oh, this is not fun, and we back off. And how do you do it at work? Well, let me look at my phone. Let me, and so I find that really fascinating. That and again, if you think about what companies are around to do, companies are around to make money, and you go, wow, if you have a workforce that if they were inspired, you could get maybe 50-60% more productivity out of them. Wow. So that's probably the number one. I've also read, certainly Jocko Williams, Lawrence Colebrook. And so there's a theme, all of these folks have done incredibly tough things and persevered. Right. And so I find that to be very inspirational. And the other thing that these folks are saying is, why would you care what everyone else is doing? What have you done? What have you done today? Because again, we're in this kind of society where we point fingers and we go, well, I'm not successful because of this person or this group, or, well, this person's getting a promotion that I should have got. And if you stop all that and you start to go, okay, what do I need to do to get better? That's where true greatness comes from. That's where you start to really be the best you can be. And you can't if you're blaming everyone else and you're focused on everything else. And today, unfortunately, there's so much out there to distract us from ourselves.
Social media, man. I mean,
yeah,
there's plenty of time.
Social media
can do it. I mean, and we're as much of it we can point fingers at. We're out there doing it too. But no, it's a great message. I'll have to pick up that book. Currently I'm reading Never Split the Difference. FBI Negotiate is a really good one. Let's see. I'm trying to think what else. I'm also reading. My wife tells me I should read for fun more, which I tell her this is fun, but she doesn't get it. So I'm trying to read some nonfiction. I just read Black Buck, which was a really good one, kind of a sales book.
Oh yeah,
really good. Good story in there too. Well, hey Mike, while we have you, we're going to. This is something new we've kind of been doing at the end of shows, but we're going to give you the floor a little bit. Turn it back over, let you kind of have the podcast. But
are you sure you want to trust me? You're giving me the keys.
We can always.
Kinda, I do hang out with Lane Miller, right? So there's that.
We always have that magic button over here. But Mike, what's one message that you would like to share with our audience, whether personal, business, whatever? You got your moment to give it all away.
Yeah.
What would you like to share?
Yeah, I'll bring it back to pipeline integrity for just a moment, because we've talked about leadership and I'm passionate, but understand that all of these things are connected. I have had the privilege of working and building with some wonderful teams, some excellent pipeline integrity programs, and those programs functioned very, very well. I mean, world-class programs, best people, best technologies, and you take one person out, or you change ownership, or you take one person out and you take another person out, and all of a sudden these programs crumble. All the processes and procedures are still there, all the technologies are still there, and you go, okay, well, why is that program not what it was? And it becomes, it comes back to this leadership question. And so here's my question for the audience is, do you want to be mediocre? Okay. Because if the answer is yes, if you're ultimately satisfied with being mediocre, I have nothing to offer you, right? I can't help you, right? But if you want to be special, if you want to be great, then take the first step. And the first step is looking inwardly. What do I need to work on, right? And I think that folks that give the advice of, double down on your strengths and don't forget your weaknesses, I think that's completely wrong. I think that you've got to embrace your weaknesses, be comfortable with them, and work on them every single day and get better. And that's how you start down the road to being special. Now, are we all going to be influential leaders? Maybe not, but we all have a role to play. And again, having the ability to be led is really just as important as being an effective leader. Now, I think my role as a leader is to support and develop the talent that I work with. And I work with brilliant folks that require little to zero management, right? And so, but then I also have folks on the team that are younger, that are just getting their career started, and that's my responsibility, is to help them along this path. And their responsibility is, okay, I got to walk down this path, and when Mike asked me to run, I need to run. So. I think that ultimately, if you look at society in this country right now, unhappiness and depression, all these things are everywhere. Yeah. And we can fix that, right? You can turn off the news. You can stop consuming all the media. You can stop consuming social media, and you can go out the door, put your shoes on, go for a walk. And then maybe the next day you're going to go for a jog. And then maybe the next day you're going to go for a run. And believe it or not, then a year from now, you're going to be better than what you were, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. That was good.
That's good.
I have a follow-up question, James, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
We kind of wrap up the show. We're getting towards that point, but let's just say you're in front of an energy crowd of 10,000 people on stage by yourself, and they say to you, Mike, say the one word that describes you. What would you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting question. And the one word that describes me, I think that the word that comes to mind would be optimist. I think that you have to effectively lead, you have to see the good. And right now, nobody wants to see the good, because it's just it's not cool right now. It's not in vogue. And how do you get clicks on your news website? Well, you say something inflammatory or bad about someone else, and that's what we click on, right? And so I would say, optimist.
I like that. That's we haven't heard that one yet, James. Have
we need more optimists.
Yeah, we really do.
Yeah,
right. I mean, yeah, because otherwise you're fighting yourself of being a pessimist. You're like, oh,
yeah.
But if you're
hey guys, we have some pessimist viewers too, so don't. We're trying to
be
inclusive.
We'll bring them along.
Yeah, so we will bring them along.
We will. Yeah. Well, Mike, you've been awesome. It's been great to fellowship with you, and finally to get to talk some shop. I know I speak.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
When we say it's been our treat to learn from you today, and I hope our audience gained a little bit out of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
No, thank you on behalf of James and I, thank you for being on. For the audience members, if you're on the LinkedIn platform, please connect with Mike, follow TRC.
Find me on LinkedIn.
What's that?
Yep, find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm not hard to find.
I think we may even put a hyperlink when we post this, just so we make it easier for everybody. So, no,
all right.
Thank you, everybody. Absolutely. Mike, again, thank you for being on the show today. We absolutely enjoyed it. We want to have you back sometime. Is that all right down the road?
Anytime. I'm happy to do it.
That sounds great. Until next week on Coffee with Jim and James, thank you for tuning in. As I always say, stay safe, everybody. We'll see you next time. Take care. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, James.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.